everybody, welcome back to another tech tip from Fisher Unitech. This is Dan, and I have just a quick case here, quick question that came into tech support about routing and some specific things in routing, and I thought it was a good example or good time to make a quick video about this. So the basic question was if we wanted to create a route or create a kind of a group of components, a couple connectors and a wire, and it would be something that we use commonly. So it's a purchased cable that we use to connect boards, or it's something that we use over and over again. So it's essentially the same thing. It's always the same wire and it's always the same length. And we want to put that into the assembly and have it be not multiple routes. It really is just multiple instances of the same route. And the other question was, the other part of that was we want to manage and revision that inside of PDM. It really should just be one controlled version of this route that we either create in-house or we buy. And we don't want multiple versions of this in PDM. So just a couple different approaches here. I mean, our normal approach for making a route inside of SOLIDWORKS Premium, in this case, I just have a few RJ45 terminals here, and I threw in some extra ones so we can make some extra routes here. And this is an old routing assembly, but it works really great for showing electrical examples. So I'm in 2019 Service Pack 1, and I've got routing electrical turned on. So if we go into my library, into design library, and into routing here, inside of routing, you can always choose what type of routing you're doing, but if I'm doing electrical in this case, this is pretty much your standard library that ships with SOLIDWORKS of just electrical connectors and different things you might need. So if I find that RJ45 connector, in this case, the one that we're going to use, your pretty standard connector, but again, just you'll notice all the other pretty standard electrical components in here. But we'll pull this RJ45 in, and the standard way, the traditional way to create a route in SOLIDWORKS routing is by drag and drop. That's probably my personal favorite way to begin a new route. So we'll start there with our first component, our first routed component, and we can increase our diameter of our wire, for example, if we wanted to. We could adjust, how that's going to look, put a covering on it, or other parameters. But the point of this is the first component you drag in begins the route and shows you route properties. We're going to hit green check. We don't need to save quite yet, just to confirm the route, and it opens a new route and starts a new route and turns on AutoRoute. And it's kind of at this point waiting for me to insert more components. So I'll just bring in another RJ45 connector here and drop it here. And what we're seeing when we bring these components in is these little stubs that come out of each component. And that's basically routing, beginning to create those wires and giving you points that you could auto route to and from. So using auto route, I can go from this point to this point, and it will create a really nice route for us. This is our traditional way. And this, again, you don't want to have to do this every time. It'll just exit route and get all the way out of this route now. You don't want to have to do that every time if it's a component that you're buying or sourcing from somewhere, or whatever, or again, it's a common route that you use in-house. So my first approach for this was using standard cables to try and accomplish that. And standard cables is pretty great because it lets you take a cable you've already created like this and say add new cable and add that cable to the library. And what it does is basically create a little table or a little database of sample cables. The problem with that is it's just the database. It's not actually creating that cable in the background. It's not actually creating a library of cables. It's creating a database of cables to make them easier to make in the future. So an example is, if we wanted to insert one of these, I had a test wire in here, same thing, just a test RJ45 connector. And you can fix the length of these as well. You can make this a fixed length. So if we did, in this case, maybe it's, we'll just say 200 millimeters, for example, and I want to insert cable, it will put us into almost what we did before with dragging and dropping, but now it's showing us, okay, you have two components to insert. So there's the first one, and we'll just kind of cruise over here, and there's our second one. All components have been placed. Would you like to start routing now? So we'll start routing. And this is our wire that automatically gets created. Now, in this case, I guess my length here of 200 millimeters wouldn't work, so it's giving me a message about that. But in this case, I'm just showing you this kind of automatic way to create that route using standard wires. So that's okay. We'll hit OK there, and we'll hit green check and confirm that route and exit route. Just kind of curious, what did that route end up as lengthwise? Okay, so it's 208. So 200 couldn't quite reach that length. It ended up at about 208 millimeters there. So that's the second example. Again, that's close. That gets us a lot closer because it was way faster to create that route. But again, not an actual part file in the background that we could control and revision and manage. So the third method to create this route that I think gets us all the way there is something called reuse route. So when we are in electrical and we choose reuse route, it'll give us a list here of any routes that are already in this assembly, and it's kind of choosing the last one I had created there. You can kind of see the preview, and would basically let us just grab that route and reuse it and drop it back in. But the other thing it lets you do is browse for a route. So if I browse, I'm just jumping right into a vault here I have on my machine, and in that vault I have another route. Again, the same exact thing, two RJ45 connectors and a standard length cable here that's already in the route. It's checked in, it's revision managed, so I know it's been checked in, and you know, it's the updated version. It's the one we want everybody to use. So I'll hit open on that, and it'll update the preview, and it'll also say maintain route segment length, so don't change the length of this route. So when I just kind of drop it here in place, this is just the preview of what it'll look like. When I drop it in place, it'll put us into a similar command as before, asking us to mate and locate the two components. So there's the first one into that connector there, and our second one is into the backside of this connector here. This is the previewed auto route. We could change this. These are spline points, so you could adjust the curvature of that wire if you wanted to, but we'll hit green check and exit route. So we have three very similar routes there, right? Three RJ45 to RJ45 routes, and just three examples, three different ways to create the same route. But again, I think that third method is gets us all the way there in terms of what this customer wanted by saying, hey, we want it to be a standard wire that we can revision manage and make sure everybody's using the same one and have it maintain its length. So three different approaches of creating the same route. And again, thanks for your time. And if you have any other requests or any other ideas for videos that you guys would like to see, please let us know, and have a great day.